Yes, the dogs are still with me and they made it through another musical. Hello, darlings, and welcome to Performance Perspective, where we watch musicals whether they're on stage or film and we just talk about it. Now, don't forget to subscribe because I watched Diana the Musical on Netflix, so you should be able to watch it too. So this might shock you, but I didn't hate it. Now, before we get started into this discussion, are there such things as musical biopics? As you might have seen in my last video on Space Dogs, technically that is a biopic on Laika the dog sent to space to never return. There's also Gypsy based on Gypsy Rose Lee, and of course Evita based on Eva Peron. Oh yeah, there's also, Alexander Hamilton. Have you heard of that musical before? This musical, however, I think had the right idea but the wrong execution. First off, the musical begins and we meet Diana right away. I wish there was a build-up until we see her and excitement of, oh, here she is, and this is the moment that the world changed, of her being introduced to Charles. I would have had them start with the opening of the newspapers and how Charles is a playboy, and the newspapers should have been covering the queen so that you can't see her, and when the newspaper unfolds, you realize, oh, there's the queen. When talking to Charles saying it's time for him to settle down, that would have been a great moment for the queen to have a song of her own. So in my head, the queen has more of a sense of duty, that she let go of things in her life that she wished she could have for her country and duty. So when Charles is complaining about settling down and not wanting to do it, I think it would have been great for a song to happen of all the things she didn't want to do, but she did it for her country and she did it because of her duty. So like things like, oh, I didn't want to go through World War II or a depression, or I know there's going to be a list of things. So that would have been a great song. Through the whole musical, it feels that they're trying to cram in so many things about Diana that are interesting, but they should have just stayed focused on her story, because then it just felt like a big trivia. Like, did you know this about her? Did you? Hi, Nugget. Okay, you can hang out with us. Now, the story, they seem to be really focused on the affair. Okay, so what I wish they did with the musical was have the beginning like a fairy tale, like you're looking at it through Princess Diana's eyes, of meeting the prince and this sort of like promise, like things are going to be wonderful. But then, am I boring you? But then Camilla's introduced, and that's when the fairy tale ends and the reality begins. So instead of Camilla continuing being in the story, I wish it was more of the queen. Okay, so let's take a step back and think about who are these people to us. I think it's interesting that they're creating a musical on a family that I do find a little more cold and controlled, and yet you're going to do a musical that's like out there and animated, but you know, it's a choice. I think what it comes down to it is that we really don't know these people, and we shouldn't keep acting like, oh yeah, we're like buddies. We don't know them. When I think of Diana, I think of all of the charities she's been involved with, and also the awareness that she spread by using the platform that, she stepped into. She never was the one to speak, but there was something about that little smile smirk that you always wondered what was going on in her head. And this can be established in a musical. For example, think of The Little Mermaid. Yes, she lost her voice, but yet she's singing through the second act because she's singing what's going on in her head and her thoughts. I felt like they were so close with this musical because at one point Charles says, it's his line, he says, "You are a symbol," and her response is, "Who wants to be a symbol?" I wish the story was more focused on how she broke the mold and how it helps society. They do a scene as far as the importance of her handshake to an AIDS patient. I wish there was more, because in one song they sing about all the things she's done. The thing that makes me so amazed by her is when she was spreading awareness of the minefield. She walked across land that potentially could have mines to create a point.
Don't be embarrassed about asking questions. If at any time you have any doubt if you're in a safe area or unsafe area, just stand still, draw attention to yourself. If you hear an uncontrolled explosion, something has gone off, please just check yourself to make sure you've not been injured, and we will come back to the control point here. If you find as a result of the blast you've gone into an uncleared area, stay still and we'll come and get you out.
Thanks. I seem to have an enormous amount of media that follow me around the world, so I feel that they may be able to raise the awareness of the difficulties in the country that we've arrived in. I'm very happy to do photo calls if it raises the issue, but only on that basis, and it's certainly nothing in it for me.
That's scary to think that she knew that this was the thing for people to pay attention because potentially she could have blown up. I have to say there were some great songs in this musical. I enjoyed Pretty Pretty Girl. This was great because it established a scene within the song on how Diana used her fashion to give her a voice when she wasn't speaking. There's also parts in the song that allow us to see how others were affected on how she was dressed. Whether it was Charles being jealous, the Queen wondering why she didn't pick her clothes, or the people taking pictures of her. Another great scene with music was The Words Came Pouring Out, which was Diana secretly telling the truth about her life and using the author to write the story. This is referring to the book that came out in 1992 called Diana, Her True Story by Andrew Morton. My favorite song in the musical is the shortest song. It's called The Dress, and you know what they're referring to. It's the dress. It's less than 4 minutes, and I wish there was more to it because it was such a statement. I'm not gonna lie, I still sing feckity 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 dress. Like, it's so good. So yeah, those were the 3 songs I enjoyed the most in the musical, and it's what made me go, you know what? This is actually okay. It's not the greatest, but it's not the worst. When the ending came, I have to admit, I started tearing up because it's not because of the musical itself, it's because her story is really sad. Again, I'm just an American that doesn't know these people at all, but I can't help this feeling that Diana was innocent coming in. And because of Charles and Camilla not getting it together, Diana became the victim of their indecision. The musical had the right idea as far as the ending, but the moment they announced that Diana has passed away, they burst into a big "ah!" And then she walks off in silence and you can hear the heels, and that's it. I would have just skipped the big singing "ah" and just have it end with Diana passed away and the silence and her walk off. That's how I would have done it. So my overall perspective of the musical is that it's not the time for this. I think of William and Harry and how it's just hasn't been time to mourn over their mom. We also have the show The Crown, and it just seems like we need to stop it with our obsession with Diana because it doesn't seem healthy. I mean, let's just let them be. When I think of Diana, I feel like she wouldn't want people stuck on her story unless it gave a lesson for society to improve, versus let's talk about the drama that happened in the family. Yeah, again, I think what's important to her is her kids and not re-sharing her story on different platforms over and over and over unless it's a lesson for us to grow. Anyways, darlings, that's it for today's episode. The next musical that I'll be watching that I've never seen before is Heathers. That's on the Roku channel. So don't forget to subscribe to see my reaction to that. By the way, is there anyone that you think should have a biopic musical about them? I say Weird Al Yankovic. I just watched his biopic movie on the Roku channel and stuff. Also, I'm a huge UHF fan. So yeah, if there's anyone, who would you want to see? Like their life within a musical. If you are looking for more magic, I am on Instagram and TikTok, Care Off Book. And without further ado, take care, darling.